if you can. There's somebody, 791-35386. Okay, thank you. So maybe we could go around the room because we have a, don't have so many people here. And tell us all who's here. So how about, let me do the phone number, 503 ending in 5386. Who are you?
Otis.
Otis, thank you. How about 503 ending in 5599? Who's that?
Yeah, Dan Hoyker.
Dan Hoyker, was that? Okay, I got Otis and Dan Hoyker. Was that 5599?
Hey, Cindy, I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody so we can hear more clearly.
Yeah, Cindy, Dan Hoyker.
People can come off mute as they need to, but I think
Okay.
we're clear.
So including me, Charlene is muting everybody. So if you're going to say something, then do that. If you're on the phone, do *6. So I've got Otis and Dan Hoyker, and I was just trying to figure out who all was here because we do have a smaller group. So how about phone number 7206? If you could tell us who you are.
You got.
Yeah, who is it?
Yeah, do you have me here now?
Yeah, who is it though?
Yeah, Derek Wall.
Derek, thank you.
All right.
And then 360-24 or 4376. Who is that?
Ken Workla.
I can. 503 ending in 8211.
Bill Hunsinger.
Hi, Bill, thanks. We got John North, we got Tony Siniskel with NIMPS, we've got Brian Love, Greg Johnson, Charlene, Jim Coleman. I think that's the list. If I missed anybody, unmute your phone and let me know. Okay. So I thought maybe we'd start out by looking at the handout, and somebody tell me if you can see the screen here.
Yeah, let's
Okay. So just kind of wanted to summarize what these model runs that we did. So when we met with you guys last time, you know, there was several different requests. And so, you know, this first one, I think, was what we started with last time. I think that was it. So there was a request to move, I think, move a day in September into August, and I think that was number 2. Option number 3 was, I think, along the lines of, hey, John, can you open up the commercial model and help me with some of the details on this? But I think commercial number 3 might be 3 days a week in August. Number 4 and number 5 on this list were some, I guess, staff options, I would say. So those first, I guess, number 2 and 3 were a couple of the things that we heard from you folks last time. And then number 4, I think, was just a modified approach to, I'm not sure what I was doing in that one. Sorry, I'm not doing very good here. I'm going to stop sharing here. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can get a better file up.
Yeah, Cindy, this is Bill Hensinger.
Go ahead, Bill.
For some of us who aren't on the screen, but we do have copies of the commercial side of things that were discussed, the shift of the September, the Chinook 3 days, all of that stuff. If we could go just off of that list, because some of us can't look at the screen you're looking at, but we can address each one of these issues and discuss it. That might be an easier approach for you.
Okay, thank you. So that's what I do have that on the screen now. It's in a spreadsheet format. Charlene, can you see the spreadsheet?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Maybe just to look at this summary table that's in your handout. The commercial option 1, you know, we've got the total Chinook catch there, about 40,800. And then we've pulled out what the August portion of that catch is. And that option 1, it's about 20,000. Then there's a column for the LRH exploitation rate, and that's in there just so that we can, it helps us to measure where we are in the sharing, because that's our constraining stock. And yes, and then we have the upriver bright mortalities and the harvest rate associated with that. We've got another column for B index steelhead, and then we've got another column for total LRH. So, oh, and then one other thing to point out, one of the other things that we heard from folks last time was, well, from Greg Johnson specifically, was to add more time, add more Chinook to the Coho Tangle Net time. And so that was done in options 2, 4, and 5. You can see with the little asterisk there. So the thing that we need to look at when we're looking at these 5 options is, are we going to meet our objectives? And so the most constraint, I guess the most constraining objective for the commercial fishery is B steelhead. And so as we look at these options, the only ones that do fit B steelhead are the commercial 4 and the commercial 5. And the commercial number 5 is the one that's in the MR model that's in the handout.
Hey, Cindy, John North had his hand up, but then he put it down. So, and I don't know if you can see hands, because when you're presenting, it can be difficult. So I just thought I'd flag that. I
cannot see hands. So John, why don't you just kind of, I'll try to pause and you can help me because I can't see your hand, so you can just jump in. So did you want to jump in right now?
You were just getting there. I wanted to remind folks that when we met last time, we didn't have the steelhead model outputs available. So in that, that first model run, number 1 there, we had 4 days in September, but then when we went back and ran the steelhead, that didn't even fit. So right out of the gate, we had to lose 1 day in September just to get closer to the steelhead. I thought that was kind of important to kind of frame that up.
Yeah, and I guess I would say that when I was working on options 2 and 3, at the time I didn't have the steelhead impact either. So between the last meeting and this meeting, this mix of options was sort of an iterative process, and that's what got me down to option 4 and 5, which was trying to take the input that you guys had provided, but shape it so that we'd get into the 6, 6 is our magic number for B steelhead. Sorry, I don't know that we even said that. That's an important point. 6 is our target number for B steelhead, no more than 6. And then the LRH harvest rate, as was talked about in the full meeting, we're trying to manage for a rate of about 15% for all the fisheries. So that's kind of where we landed on commercial option number 5. So maybe just a couple more things. All of these fisheries includes a full safe fishery. The Coho part of these, the Coho part of this, I mean, these are all Chinook numbers, and that's what this is all about. But there's Chinook needed to prosecute the Tangle Net fishery. The Tangle Net fishery is in there 15 days at 3 days a week, starting the week of September 26th. And then the Coho harvest mortality is about 112,000 for all of the fisheries. And that's in the handout as well. So I think there's a couple hands up. So maybe Charlene, you could help me with the hands if there was questions.
Yeah, I don't see any hands right now, but if you're ready to take comment, we could certainly ask folks,
Oh, yeah, I can go. So this is model option 5 on the screen, and I'm sorry, Bill and others can't see this, but it is 2 days a week in August, except for the last week in August, the week of the 29th, that's that volatile week. We couldn't squeeze 2 periods in there, so the model says it's 1.7, but it's basically a day and a half, or whatever it takes to catch 10,000 fish. And then the September days are all 1 day per week for 4 weeks, starting the week of September 12th. So questions or comments on where we're at right now in commercial number 5, which is the option that we're looking at currently. Or John, do you have anything to add? Go ahead.
Well, I think just from our handout, we kind of wanted to point out on that LRH burn, which is, something we got to operate within. The most of that burn comes in later part of August with the bigger catches, and then also mid-September still has some pretty decent burn, but then it drops off pretty fast into late September. So that has influence on how much we can do when, right? If we're still trying to stay at around that 15%. So that was a consideration.
So Cindy, I see Greg Johnson's hand is up, and one clarifying question for me was when you went into the more detailed commercial number 5 option, did I see 4 September periods instead of 3?
Oh, yes.
I think it included the October.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thanks, Charlene. Good clarification. Good catch, John. Yeah, it's 3. And then there's that last, 3 September, 1 October. I might have said it wrong, though.
Okay, and then Greg Johnson has his hand up.
All right, go ahead, Greg.
So two pieces. In terms of the request to put more fish into August via the September 12th time frame, I'm assuming that wasn't steelhead can't be the issue. It must be, is the LRH burn higher in August than in September, and therefore it won't fit? So that's one question. And then just maybe if you could do a clarifying point when the time comes about our access to Coho, what our allocation, I don't believe we have one, but you know, we have a select area and a Chinook directed non-limitation in Coho, but do we actually have an allocation for Coho directed fisheries? So those are my two. Thank you.
So in the terms of moving steelhead from August, and moving salmon from September to August, God, getting old. That was option 2 compared to option 3. So in option 2, you get 9 days in August versus 8 days, and 3 days in September versus 4 days. So that's the one that did that, but it doesn't work on steelhead. But remember, Greg, I didn't have the steelhead numbers when that model was first run, and when it was requested, we didn't know what the impact would be on steelhead. So steelhead doesn't make it in the first option where we started with you guys, and it didn't make it in that second option either. But you can see the reduction in steelhead from number 1 to number 2. Number 1, so moving more days does reduce steelhead. Moving September days into August, that did reduce steelhead. It went from 6.8 to 6.3. It's just not enough. Does that answer that question?
No, not really. So if I look at the model as you have it now, the one that you've presented on page 4, if you were to take that September 12th through 18th and shift it into August, what's preventing you from doing that? It can't be steelhead. Well, I'm assuming it's got to be LRH or not.
Yeah, my recollection, it was LRH was expanding rapidly in that last week when you're putting in like in this model, we're working off of the last week, which is less than 2 days, burns 0.95 LRH, whereas the first week's only like less than 0.1. So the LRH is increasing rapidly. So I guess it kind of depends on, you got to get down to which day you're moving, like what date in August, you know, they're all different. So.
Right. So I'm just, if you add to the pile of Chinook, I would assume it would come at the end, regardless of days to catch. But I guess what you're suggesting is that the burn of LRH is less in September than it is in August. And so that's how these Chinook fit that way.
Yeah, I think the mid-September per day is about equal to the last week of August in terms of LRH per day. But then anything after mid-September just starts dropping in half and half again. So,
So I guess I'm wondering why we couldn't shift. I mean, I see by the modeling, but it probably has other pieces. But if the steelhead burn is greater in September than August, and if the LRH is neutral, I'm just wondering why we can't shift those fish to, assuming the group wants to, but why we can't shift that 12 through 18 to August.
yeah, I think Cindy will have to correct me if I'm wrong because I'm playing a little catch up. But I think then you hit a herb issue because now your herb burn is considerably higher than what you traded off, and or basically at the 15. So it's like toggling all these little different triggers.
So you might burn 2 September periods to get the fish into August. Is that
in terms of herbs? Yeah. So it's you're like looking at 3 things at once, you know.
Gotcha. I won't tie it up any further. Thank you.
So I've got the detail on the option 5 on the screen for those who can see it. And so if we were to take, if Greg is suggesting moving this about 5,000 fish in the first week in week September 12th week and moving that into August. It looks like your herb, I mean, it's possible that you could do that.
Well, perhaps something to look at without a net loss in total Chinook and with other people's comments.
Okay.
Thanks. And then the Coho one when it's appropriate.
What was that then? Sorry.
Just explain our Coho allocation. Do we have a directed Coho fishery allocation, or do we just have priority and select area Coho harvest and directed Chinook fishing? I think John knows the answer on this one. Thanks.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
Coho, there's no fixed allocations, like we're used to with, spring Chinook or fall Chinook. It's just kind of a priority text in the policies, which fisheries have priority. A year like this, we're not close to the 30%. So I've had several questions like that. What's our allocation? And my answer has been, it's not what the maximum you could catch, it's what you can catch within the constraints of, in this case, probably steelhead to access them. So don't worry about the maximum you could have caught it. There's no way we have the steelhead to get to that. So.
Other questions or comments?
This is Rob Sudar.
Go ahead, Rob.
It looks to me like, in comparing ours and the recreational fishery is pretty heavily front loaded again. Is there how much risk do we have based on the way you've got this set up that they're not going to over harvest again and cost us time in September? Because 1 day a week in September is really important, in my opinion, to being able to keep some continuity in the marketplace. And I don't want to see us get shorted by one fishery working hard to get all they can in that certain time frame, and then we don't have anything left for you.
Well, my generic statement would be, and I thought about this during the main meeting, across the board with our fisheries, we manage them on a day-by-day basis with looking at dam counts, fishery catch. Our sport samplers are out there 7 days a week. Buoy 10, we're getting catch estimates every day. And the main stem sport fishery, we're getting them once a week, but we're getting sampling data every day. The commercial fishery, we're getting landings every day. And then we're turning Coho wire tags around about on a weekly basis. So I don't know any other fishery in the world that's managed the way we manage the Columbia River. So, there's no perfect answer, but the fact, how do you manage those? You don't go over. You do just what I said. You take every single piece of information you have in season, and you modify your fisheries as needed to stay within your guidelines. And we've got a good track record of doing that over the years. That's my first generic comment. I mean, if you look at the commercial fishery we've got outlined here, I think your fishery, the way it's laid out, is probably very front loaded as well. I'd have to look at the model specifically, but out of the upriver bright impacts, I'm guessing that maybe 60% are occurring in August. So the same situation is there. So that's all I'm going to say. John can add to that if he wants.
It's a good question. We're kind of going back to that allocate everything and only those fisheries after the run-up date really serve as a buffer. And so there is that risk. I haven't calculated what the percent pre-update is being allocated for each side, but it's kind of like Cindy said, they're both weighted in terms of herbs up front. So yeah, we don't have like a buffer.
And I guess, typically we've had those conversations with you folks in the past in terms of, what's the priority, in terms of the coho fishery has often been, chosen as one of the priorities. In other words, especially in a year like this, we want to ensure that we have enough Chinook, that we don't run out of Chinook impacts to prosecute the coho fishery. So, but just because of the way these work, September is sort of the buffer for the commercial fishery, if a run size downgrade or over harvest in another fishery. That's always been that way.
Yeah, I do get that, and you guys do a good job of trying to avoid that problem. But I'm looking at really half of our harvest in option 5 is basically in September and into October and into the Tangle Net fishery. So we've really only got about 50% of our overall harvest in by the end of August on that particular option, and missing if we miss that week of the 18th or the 12th to the 18th or whatever it is, that's going to be the best opportunity in September for us to catch anything. It's tailing off, and so I guess I just want to make sure everybody's aware of the fact that once again we've got a lot at stake in terms of having a lot of fish left to catch after the update, the way this is set up.
Yeah, so I just did the calculation based on option 5, and 54% of the total Chinook is coming in August based on this option.
Now, Cindy, I'm not sure that's correct because you got select area in the denominator, so.
Okay. Let me redo that then. 63%. That make more sense?
Yeah.
Okay. No, that's fine. Just always a concern. Like as a marketer, every week is an important week, and just like having enough left for September, we haven't had any coho on the market for so long from the Columbia. This would be a chance to let people know, hey, guess what? We're going to have coho again this year, and so having enough Chinook to prosecute that is a big deal. I guess my last final little question is, what's the curve for the bees look like? Do they start dropping off fairly quickly by the time you get to October, or is it kind of a straight line thing?
I'd have to pull up a graph, but seems like they're peaking at Bonneville around mid-September.
Yeah, it's kind of on the same curve as the Chinook run with little longer tails. But what's the weird part is as you get later, even though the numbers are down, the proportion that are wild bees of what you handle increases because the other fish are. So the absolute number's down, but the proportion of what's there that's bees and or wild bees is higher. So.
Yeah, that is true.
Okay.
Robert, I just wanted to clarify on this option 5. I think I'm hearing you say you would prefer to keep that September 12th week season in place and not move it to August.
Yeah, I know that's not what everybody in the industry thinks, but as a marketer, I think that's an important thing, is to have some kind of an opening in that week to put fish on the market a little more. I know that was a popular week last week in terms of the places I sell to, and I don't know if Steve Fick's on the line and whether he agrees with that or not, but I'd hate to lose that week.
Any other thoughts? Questions?
Yeah, Cindy, Bill Hunsinger.
Go ahead, Bill.
Yeah, I've got a couple of questions. You made a statement here that we manage the fisheries day to day, and you know, if you look over the past 5 years, you guys have let the sports go over by quite a bit on certain years. And when we're anywhere close, if we got 1,500 fish to go or 2,000 fish to go, we're chopped off. And of course, John said at one time, well, you guys only have a half a steelhead, so we can't let you go. What does it matter once in a few years if the commercial fishery actually goes over? I mean, you have no better count than the data that you get from your fish tickets on a daily basis to know exactly what we're catching. And it bothers me when you guys know that you're over, and we can go back over the last 5 years and see where you guys are over your catch amounts, and you continue to let that fishery go on. Where if we're anywhere close, we don't get to fish. And we want every fish this year. Every fish that we're allotted, whether it be 2 fish per boat, 3 fish per boat, or whatever fish per boat, we want it. And we're going to ask for that because, you know, John wants to say, well, I don't know what the allocation is. And then again, you know, before you reach certain numbers, you'll have too many steelhead. But it's always us with our data that, you know, shows what we're catching. But the sports continue to go over. And I agree with a front-loaded sport fishery this year, and those guys, they should have no bitch whatsoever. They should be happier than heck about it. The other thing is the mono tangle net. I want to get to that too, because you guys in Washington, the Washington fishery uses this tangle net with strings in their Willapa fishery all the time with no problem. All of a sudden, we can't use the monofilament tangle net. With the tool that you're offering for us to fish, there's no way that we can catch anywhere near the numbers. We can show you where we catch a little handful on the last of the night tide, and we'll go 3 drifts in a row. We won't catch anything with this net. This thing is an inferior tool. You're going to have a horrible amount of escapement if even half of this fish comes in. And once again, the commercial fishery, which provides fish for the processors and the seafood markets and the restaurants, aren't going to be able to give those fish to the people that deserve them, that could go buy them. And they're also the people that pay taxes, that pay for the hatcheries and all these other jobs. So I'm just saying, you're taking away the biggest part of the run in the August and 1st of September and the second week in September fisheries that we're not going to have a chance to catch. But yet the sports are going to be out there catching these fish. Why are we being discriminated against just because we have a net? Those fish belong to the public. So I'm just saying, you guys should take a strong look at the statements that you're making here, because some of these statements are a little bit, you know, suspect to what you're saying, because we should be allowed to catch our fish and we should be allowed to use the tool to get it. The last thing I want to tell you is the gal that's below Ryan called me up. We talked for 45 minutes. Right now, you guys in the Columbia River are using 4 boats, she said, to test fish to see what the size of the run is in this spring season. And I said, oh, you're using 4 instead of 3? Yes, we are. Because the commercial gill net is the best way to harvest and also to tell us how big the run is. So your state of Washington is making this statement that the best tool to use virtually to harvest or to see how big the run is a commercial gill net. But yet you won't let us use it. And you're going to hold off and cause us a horrible amount of gear problems when we're trying to figure out what we can use, because the whatever straight net 3 3/4, you catch bucketfuls of jacks, and you want to use those fish in your counts, and the mortality rates of those fish in your counts, and they're jacks. They're no good. They're no good to the processor. They're no good to the market. But anyway, thank you. I will have some other questions on some other stuff, but you guys got to take a look at what you're doing to us, because this is not fair to the commercial fishery. Thank you, Cindy.
John, I see your hand up.
Oh, sorry, I was still thinking about Greg's request. I just needed a little more. I think I was looking at the wrong line. So yeah, in theory, yeah, you could move the mid-September date into the last week of August. But I was curious. I wanted to clarify. Did he want it in the last week? And then how would you utilize that? Because it wouldn't be like 3 full periods. So would you go Sunday, Tuesday, and the last day would be there September 2nd, 3rd, something like that? Or what was what's the thoughts there?
All right, you could do it either way. You could add a day in week 35, or you could add to the 1.7, and then if you had enough fish left over, you could go on the 1st or whatever for a half a day, whatever it took to get the fish. You know, people on the call need to speak to this too, and this is just me based on multiple calls and conversations over years, what people are not over years for this season. What I had a picture of what they wanted, so people need to speak up and see if they want to put more fish into August or not. Thanks.
Tony?
Thanks, Cindy. I just had a couple of questions. I noticed in the handout in the contingency planning section, there was references for 6-inch gill net and an alt gear, and just wanted to confirm that those are not included in the MR model as presented in the packet.
That's correct. They're not in the model.
Okay. Also, I noticed the mention of monofilament in the Tangle Net section. I think Bill Hunsinger brought it up too. Is that referring to 6-inch mono gill nets, or is this referring to using mono for 3 3/4?
I think he's referring to using it for tangle nets, but John?
Yeah, Tony, the issue that's been kind of going on is the Tangle Net is that 3 3/4 multi, and it's not real efficient, you know, unless even on the biggest return back in 14, we only caught like 18,000 fish visible in the daylight. So there's people interested in modifying, if there's any flexibility in modifying that net, if that's all they get to use. And of course, being on tech, you're well aware of, you know, mortality rates and focus on that. So we've been struggling with how much can you modify a gear without the mort rate changing, you know? And
Right. I mean, my understanding of the TAC mort rate was it would be for multi 3 3/4. Is that your understanding?
yeah, correct. That's what we did. We tested a variety of gears, and then when we for better or for worse, narrowed it down to what we have now. Then we did the long-term study just on that 3 3/4 multi. So that's where we got our long-term from. In the test work, the immediate mort rate for mono, although the sample size was small, was a little higher. And the challenge is, how does that translate into a long-term?
Gotcha. Thank you. Thanks everyone for that.
Go ahead, Brian Love.
Yeah, I just wondering basically the mort rate of the mono 3 3/4. I mean, John, you say it's a little higher, but I guess how much is a little? And also, like Huntslinger's saying, so it's good in Willapa Bay, but not the river. I guess the discrepancy between the two is a little confusing.
Yeah, those are good questions. Unfortunately, we don't have all the answers because, like I said, we tested a variety of gear, mostly looking at immediate mort rate and catch rate, and that was back in like 2009 through 11. So we judging on all that stuff, and we were trying to find a gear with the lowest mort rate, because at the time, seines were the presumptive path with an assumed 5% mort rate. So we were trying to find something that would be acceptable. So we went with the 3 3/4 multi that had the lowest immediate rate. The most similar net we had, I think, was a 3.5 mono, and it was 10% immediate versus 8% with the net we're using. So that's all the information we really have in terms of the ratio or the difference in mort rate, because we did not do a long-term study with mono. So the challenge is, if mono is 23 multi, the current net is 23.6, what would the long-term mort rate be with 3 3/4 or whatever mono? And we don't know that. We just assume it would be higher because when we did the immediate work, it was higher. So that's kind of our challenge here, is we don't know what the mort rate would be, so how do we calculate the impacts in the fishery? So Cindy, just a checkpoint. I know we're kind of getting into questions and stuff, but we never really went through the handout after the table. Are we good the way we're going, or do we?
No, that we can do that. Looks like Ken's got his hand up. Let's do that, and then I'll go back to the handout. Go ahead, Ken.
Yeah, this Ken Workla. So if we have an update in September, are we sure to get it and be able to get a fishery in that week of the 12th? And also, what's the date for the update on B-Run Steelhead? It seems like those were always later before they got updated. So if we hold off on our fishery on that for the B-Run Steelhead, we can let a lot of fish go by, even if the run is bigger.
So your first question was about Chinook on the week of September 12 to 18. And I didn't quite. So you're saying if we don't get a run update, can we still go fish that week, or what was it you're asking?
No, usually we have to wait for that run update before we get to go fishing. Is that the case?
I gotcha. I better let John answer that because I'm not managing that fishery right now or anymore. I mean, I think some of it's gonna actually, some of it would depend on what you caught in August and how close that was to the model and how many upriver brights were compared to where we think the run is and all that stuff. But go ahead, John.
Yeah, that all comes into play, but in general, TAC will be monitoring that Chinook run starting late August, early September. Might get a run update on the 6th, certainly on the 13th, and then we see what we're allowed and compact and hearing that week. It says week of the 12th through the 18th, but you probably, realistically, it'd probably be around the 15th or something. And then steelhead a little bit later. I think if I recall, you could get an preliminary update mid-September and like the first good update maybe that third week of September on the wild bees.
Yeah, well, that seems like that's what I remember. So as we're going down that road, it looks like we're better off to catch our fish in August and wait for an upgrade instead of just an update.
Okay, I'm back on the agenda. If you guys can see it on, the handout, so if you can see it on the screen. I guess just maybe starting from the top. The assumptions that we've got in the model: 9-inch mesh in August, 8-inch in September. The Tangle Net periods are those enhanced times and areas, which I think we're going to talk about below. And then this was brought up again that we don't know what the ocean impacts are going to be on LRH, so there could be some need to adjust that at PFMC. Number 2, sturgeon allocation is 600 fish for the main stem fisheries in the fall. So I think weekly landing limits are what's been in place recently, and I would assume it's going to be similar to what's happened the last few years, John, for sturgeon.
Yeah, generally we haven't modeled it out, but I would say it should be real similar to. Well, I mean, I guess we could ask. In last year, we tried to hit it pretty hard, and we didn't know how many periods we'd have. If you have more periods planned, we can try and spread the sturgeon out, or we can just go into August with somewhere in that 5 to 7 range and use them until they're gone. So, but continue.
Okay, so I've got Coho on the screen here. So Tangle Net Modification. So there was some requests for this additional dark fishing time, and that does not affect the release mortality rates. So, and then there was an earlier start date around the last week in September. So both of those are in the Coho model. John was talking to this a little bit, that we're not considering right now as a monofilament because we don't have a mortality rate for that gear. And the stringers, again, we don't have the impact on what the release mortality rate would be, assuming that it would probably be higher. The enhanced Tangle Net fisheries for 2021 includes this time of 4 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm not sure how many additional hours that is. 3 days a week, 15 periods. I guess I would mention we did look at 5 days a week too, but again, then you run into your steelhead problem. So yeah, there's that. And then also continuing the use of voluntary logbooks. Any questions on that?
Did we come to a determination on the 2-day-a-week schedule on what days would be fished? Are we continuing on with the practice we had, or where's that at?
You mean for Chinook in August?
Oh, those are postcards.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think I felt like we had general agreement from the group at the first meeting that if it was 2 days a week, it was going to be Monday, Wednesday. I don't have those notes in front of me, sorry, but is it
Good
Monday,
enough.
Wednesday?
That's the good enough.
Okay.
That's what we assumed in the model there with those dates.
And the other thing, I guess just kind of remembering, doing 2 days a week in August had some folks liking that better than the 3 days just because of the sport commercial conflict on Sunday nights if you had a 3-day fishery up there in August. So that was the other part of that. So this, I'm here on the agenda where it talks about the ending season contingency plan. And so basically there's some differences in between, there's different approaches to the Coho directed fisheries. Right now, the model has all tangle net fishing and no alternative gear fishing. If one way to deal with that is to deal with it in season if you can find additional impacts. And the key to that is you would need additional impacts, that because all of the impacts for Chinook and steelhead are currently being used right now. The other alternative approach to that is to reserve impacts pre-season. So take the model that we have now and take away some fishing time and put in a placeholder for 6-inch gill net or alternative gear. The issue with 6-inch gill net, as has already been stated, is it's okay in the Washington policy, but it's not okay in the Oregon policy. And I don't know if there's been any discussions about how that might proceed in 2021. Charlene would be the one that would know that.
Well, I guess I could chime in there and say I don't know anything more than there are discussions going on, and we still don't yet have a final word on that, and we may not until we see the runs. I think as it's stated here, I think looking at how the run materialized, I always struggle with this word, how the run shapes up, and then also what impacts to listed species look like as we get closer. But still not concurrent at this point.
Okay, any other thoughts or comments on what we've just gone over? Any topic at all?
This is Otis Hunsinger. I got some comments.
Go ahead, Otis.
Okay. I'd like to ask staff or from either Oregon or Washington, if you guys' Coho run comes in as you expect, do you think there's any way possible that we would ever catch our Coho quota for the gill net with what you're giving us to use?
No.
Yeah, that's an easy one.
So we all agree on that, right?
other than there isn't a quota, but yeah, you won't catch them.
There's no way. I mean, you guys are giving us a tool that doesn't work to catch these fish, and that's our only option.
Yeah, but the people you're talking to only have certain tools in their toolbox. Right now, I've got one, maybe two. You're probably headed towards asking about 6-inch, but as of right now, I can't. It can't even. It's not available under the Oregon policy.
Right, and it hasn't been available for over a year, but it hasn't been addressed at this point, correct?
Sorry, I don't. Go ahead.
I don't think there's. I wouldn't say it hasn't been addressed. I think it has been addressed, but I don't. At this point, there's still two different policies that do not agree. Is that safe to say, Charlene? We still have two different opinions on 6-inch gear, and that hasn't changed as of today.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, all of the decision makers involved are aware of this, and discussions are occurring. We just don't yet know what the final outcome of those discussions is at this point.
Okay, but you guys are aware that you guys are costing the commercial fishing sector a ton of money with both the allocation that's not agreed on and the gear that is deemed not to let that. We have a pretty good consensus that we're not going to catch our fish. I'm just trying to clarify it.
Yeah, I guess I'm not sure I'm clear on the allocation discrepancy, at least in the fall for Coho, if that's what you're referring to. And I guess the other thing that I would ask is, and maybe John and staff already know this answer, but what is, from the commercial industry's perspective, what is the drop dead date by which you would need to know a decision on this in order to get your gear ready in time?
Are you talking about using 6-inch gear, Charlene?
Yeah.
Okay, just wanted to clarify that.
Yeah, thanks, Cindy.
I'll take a stab at that. Greg, well, in the worst case scenario, the normal time in which we have to switch gear out, given allowances for that. But at the same time, if there's a discussion that has a potentiality for using this gear as soon as possible. Thanks.
I can answer to that too. I talked to Sheila at England Marine. Your drop dead date on your 6-inch, I believe that a lot of guys have the gear, the 6-inch. I believe that part, okay? But the monofilament gear, you have to order it more or less. Your drop dead date has probably already gone by because I ordered mine for Willapa before. And I don't understand John North's statement that we tested gear back in 2009 to 2013 or whatever. We don't know the water conditions, and there was a tad more mortality rate. But I think we're trying to catch our fish, so if our mortality rate goes up a little bit, well, then we've caught our fish. But John also stated there's no way we'd catch our fish with the tool that you're offering us. And I don't understand that. What's good for one in Washington, who is part of this meeting, is not good for the other. So why would you make a statement that, yeah, we use this gear? You should have data on your mortality rates and your catches over there with this gear, which we knew works better. But a stranded tooth net catches the algae, catches everything. You can make one drift and your net's through fishing. And to make a statement that you're setting 3 days a week from 4 to 10 is completely wrong, because that even cuts down your chances even more, because how many guys are actually going to have the net to be able to fish that? And if you take what you caught last year on the size of the run using the stranded net and compare it to possible numbers of what's coming this year, then John's right. You can't catch your percent, or he doesn't want to say percent, or allocations, or whatever you don't want to say, but he said it right. You're not going to catch them because we're not going to let you catch them. We're not going to let you use a tool to catch these with. So remember the statements that you're making now, that no, you're not going to catch them with what we offer you to catch them. But we are going to offer the sports what they want and their time to catch them, but we're not going to offer you that chance. And that might be a little bit discrimination against one user group versus another. I just want you to remember what you're saying, and hopefully this is all being recorded, because this is wrong to tell you that you can't do what you do for a living and we can't give you something that'll work. You have the option to say, okay, you've caught what you can catch with your percent or your mortality rates, but you have no mortality rates on hooking and all that other stuff. But you've got 15, 20 years of data with us. Anyway, thank you. I appreciate it. And John, I wish you'd come back and answer some of those questions, because you're using 10 and 12-year-old data to make a decision when you have no data. Well, we have no data on that. Well, we know nothing about that. You got a fishery going on in Washington that's been using it for 3 years. Washington should have some kind of data. But don't tell us, because you have failed to do your job in testing monofilament with strings or anything else, that we can't catch whatever possibly is allowed for us to catch. We want every fish, and we're going to make a point of it in every meeting. But anyway, I don't mean, you said to be aggressive and don't say anything bad to anybody, but what you're saying is wrong. And anyway, thank you. John, I wish you'd answer some of those questions. 10-year-old data doesn't work. Thank you.
Yeah, Cindy?
Yeah, go ahead, Ken. I think it was Ken I heard.
Yeah, it's Ken Orkla. Yeah, I was just wondering, seems like they did have a meeting yesterday or whenever. Maybe they're getting towards the thought of having a 6-inch fishery. Would it be in our favor to have two separate options here? One that would fish, if they don't come to a conclusion of 6-inch gear, and another one that we would revert to if they did come up with that, instead of coming back later and trying to work it out then?
Yeah, that's a good question. So what I think I heard you say was, if the decision makers come to a decision between now and fall season, that they agree that we can use 6-inch gill nets, we could already have an option ready on the table that we could swap out potentially.
Yeah, that's what I would think, that instead of coming back and trying to hash it out later, since we have everybody around now.
Any thoughts on that one, John?
Yeah, I guess we could do that. We haven't really talked about the steelhead burn in a 6-inch. It's I don't know if I have the exact numbers in front of me, but we know the mort rate is 66% compared to 23.6 on Tangle Net. So that's 2.8 times, and I assume twice as many guys would go. So you know, relatively speaking, 1 6-inch day equals 6 Tangle Net days, or some other fishery, September or something. So we'd have to do we're still solving the same number of bees, right? So.
Yeah, so I did a little 6-inch exercise that swapped out 3 Tangle Net days for 1 6-inch day. But you would have to lose at least, you'd have to lose 1 or 2 days in September to make up for the steelhead. So it's about the steelhead. I mean, the coho impacts are there, so it's swapping out where you would get those steelhead impacts from.
This is Greg. Mike.
Go ahead.
So in prior times, or not too long ago, we had for 14, for example, we used both steel or 6-inch and tooth nets. I don't think we'll avoid using tooth nets this season due to steelhead, but in that season we set a schedule, but it was also modified significantly in season based on available impacts. Right now, the meeting yesterday they had zero discussion on this matter, and it wasn't particularly on the agenda moving forward. Does not say it won't be, but I don't know if it benefits us to have a published AB plan, being that it hasn't even been approved. It may be best to manage for this in season, especially due to the significant steelhead burn, and see what's available. Hopefully, prior to September, we'll have information that says we can or can't, giving guys a heads up, and we can work with staff to see what possibilities exist. Anyway, that's a thought. Thanks.
Cindy, just a follow-up on that, I guess, before we leave, question to the folks, is there enough 6-inch gear out there now in warehouses, or, you know, in your own, do enough fishermen have 6-inch gear that if things freed up later in the year that they'd be able to go? I mean, is there that many guys that would be hankering to go buy a 6-inch right now, or do they already have 6-inch?
Brian, go ahead.
Well, I can attest to that because I sold the 6-inch in order to buy the 3 3/4. That was a lot more expensive. So now that 6-inch is gone. So as for me personally, and I know 2 other guys I fish with, we all bought into the 3 3/4 Tangle Net, and of course we're highly disappointed in the outcome of that. In fact, we're still trying to pay for that gear. So I know 3 or 4 that would have to acquire the 6-inch gill net, and they would go fish it if we were using a 6-inch gill net, but the 3 3/4 mono they're not going to mess with, and the 3 3/4 Tangle Net they're not going to multi-strand, they won't mess with. The mono would be about 50% of them.
At our last call, John, at our last North of Falcon meeting, Jim Wells was on the phone, and he said most of the guys still had 6-inch.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, Cindy, this is Rob Sudar again.
Go ahead, Rob.
So I guess I see in this conversation, I get Greg's comment about don't have too much written down, but in Coho, we don't talk about the LCN matrix value for some reason. We do that in all the other ones. How many mortalities can we before we use them up, how many fish can we catch? But we don't do that with coho. For there, it's like we don't want to use any of those mortalities. And they're just as legitimate as any of the other matrices or values we have, whether it's spring or summer. Well, not summer, but spring or LRH or, you know. So it would seem to me that for a 6-inch fishery, the question is, how many of those wild impacts would you use in conjunction with the steelhead? How many steelhead would you need in order to fish with 6-inch gear, catch more of those hatchery fish, and utilize more of those LCN fish? That seems like it. I think we need to look at it differently than the way we look at the tangle net thing. And assuming that we don't have any extras, it's kind of a moot point. But if we did try to do some 6-inch fishing after the 10th or the 15th of October, whatever is the right date in there, since these are late, that shouldn't be too late. How many steelhead might we use at that time frame using 6-inch gear, fishing 1 or 2 days a week? And I think that is the question, because like last year, your bees came in a lot stronger than you expected. The ocean should be better. I mean, there's always the chance you might gain a few more bees than what you have right now, but you need to know how many you might use in order to fish some 6-inch. Not take away any of the tangle net necessarily, but what do you need to fish some 6-inch? How many more bees, and how many of those LCN impacts would you use?
So Rob, first on the coho comment you made about we don't talk about impacts. I guess the last time I was involved in fisheries management, we did talk about impacts, but we're not talking about them this year in terms of the limit, because none of the fisheries together can get to that limit. The ocean fisheries have limits on other stocks and up north, so they're not able to access what might be considered. They're not able to take advantage of this huge coho forecast because of other wild stocks up north. And in the Columbia, we're not able to do it either. And for the commercial fishery, it's because of wild bee steelhead. So you can talk about it and you can calculate how many impacts you need, but it doesn't matter because we're at 11% now and the limit is 30. And no matter what you do, you're not going to get to the limit, where we're at right now. But then back to your specific question, I mentioned this earlier. I had done a little exercise where I took the week of October 3 to 9, and I took away the tangle net days and replaced it. I took away 3 tangle net days, replaced it with 1 6-inch day. And the result is you need an additional 1.5 wild bee steelhead. So where do you find that from? Well, you pretty much, you could look various places, but it would take 1 to 2 days away from the September Chinook fishery in order to do that, and the 3 days of tangle net to get you 1 day of 6-inch.
So there's no point where you'd update the bee run in season where we'd know if we had more impacts where we could utilize a tentative 6-inch without impacting other fisheries. It's obviously too late for the Chinook. We already will have the Chinook fishing done, so it would just be impacting tangle net fishing.
Yeah, no, I didn't say that. And actually, that's a good point that you're trying to make, that if in season, if there's more bees around and we haven't used them all, if there's room, yes, you can do exactly what you said, because there shouldn't be any problem with coho, even if the forecast is half or whatever of what it is. So yes, if there are upriver brights and if there are or extra B steelhead, second half of October, because of a run-up date, yeah, so you can consider additional coho fishing, which could include 6-inch if the two states agree.
I just think that would be a useful number to have dug around with a little bit. And it sounds like you might have done that in what you were saying, your little sample that you put together. But that's the kind of a number that we need. It wouldn't happen preseason, but it could happen in season. And that's what I want to be ready at that point to have that kind of information. Yeah,
I think the managers have that in hand and can do that if there's extra fish.
In listening to some of these commissioners in both states, they have this image that of marked selective fisheries and impacts and not killing any wild fish, and I just feel like they don't have a clue about how those numbers play into everybody's fishery in every season, and it feels like it's especially apparent in coho, and I just want to make sure that we don't get pushed aside. And I know you staff people won't, you get it, but I want to be ready to how to deal with other folks if it comes up. Thank you very much.
So John, was I okay saying that in season, if we find more bees and we got extra URBs, that we can put in some additional coho time?
No, I think that's right on the money. I think we've been talking past ourselves here for an hour, because that's the only way you can do it now, unless you want to, reduce a bunch of what we have modeled here. Why not just wait until we get a bee run upgrade later September, and then we'll have to rerun our models for all the fisheries, because if the abundance is higher, the earlier fisheries will increase the burn in those. But if you have a balance, then, and if we have clearance to use it, then we can go. But battling over it right now, I don't see gets us too far.
Cindy, you have a comment?
I didn't.
I'm not.
Go ahead.
Okay, I'm not trying to battle you guys. I'm just trying to say, let's be ready if that comes up. Let it not be a surprise. That's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Was there somebody else that wanted to comment?
Yeah, Cindy, Bryce Devine here.
Hi, Bryce. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a little something to throw into the mix here. Are we effective enough with the Tangle Net to, is our mark selective on coho? Are we effective enough to hit the limits on that? I mean, we're supposed to be a mark selective fishery, but the Tangle Net's so inefficient that, I'm thinking back on the past years when I fish it, it's the fish I throw back enough to even make a difference? That's my question. Thank you.
Are you talking about making a difference with PHAs?
No, I mean, an impact to the wild stock, to the unmarked.
Oh, well.
What I'm saying is, my mortality, is our handling mortality rate so bad that, it's not the mortality rate, it's the number of mortalities. Are we killing enough of those bee-run, or not the bee-run, but the wild coho to justify going mark select? I mean, could we keep them all, and would it not hurt anything?
So, if you were going to keep them all, then you would probably just use a 6-inch mesh, because that's the purpose of the Tangle Net, is releasing the unmarked fish. So,
but what I'm saying, the Tangle Net would enable you to release the steelhead and keep your mortality rate down on steelhead.
Well, you're going to release the steelhead no matter what gear you're using. The difference in mortality rate, it's higher with the 6-inch gear than it's higher on steelhead with 6-inch than it is with tangle nets on steelhead. That part is true. But we wouldn't use tangle nets, which the purpose of it is a mark selective gear, to fish non-marked selectively when you have a gear that you can use non-marked selectively already with a 6-inch gill net. It just doesn't make sense.
Well, maybe perhaps not, but just an idea to throw out there. I just kind of think in some cases that mark selective is a little bit much. You know, when you're not efficient enough to hit the limit anyway, why are we even doing it? You know, I mean, that's one aspect of the mark select that's not looked at. If the gear is inefficient, there's some conservation benefit just in that.
Right. I guess with Coho, for the most part, you know, Ocean and Columbia River, they're mark selective fisheries because there's a high, generally speaking, they're highly marked. So, which is the best for mark selective fisheries. And that's the tool we're currently using.
Okay, well, I'm whatever we have to do, but I just wanted that concept out there. So, you know, there's a lot of people like commissioners that don't understand it. We're just saving fish to put one more on the spawning grounds or something when it's really not necessary. It's wasted exercise, in my opinion. So anyway, thank you.
Well, I'm doing a time check here. We're coming up on 1 o'clock, which was our closing time. I'm trying to figure out if we've missed anything or not. It looks like Jim Coleman just put his hand up.
Yeah, you want to hear from me now, or you want to keep going?
Well, no, I was mentioning that we're near quitting time, so you better make your comment now.
Well, I've been biting my tongue, letting this conversation kind of run its course because my comment's a little off subject. But as we're going into this 2021 season, on our list of potential gears, we're still listing the alt gear stuff. We're listing the fish trap and the beach seine and the purse seine as possible options that we might be able to use. And I think everybody on this call knows that that's not really reality, but somebody in Salem or Olympia would look at that and say, well, why aren't we doing that? So is there any clear understanding of what Blair's doing with that Cathlamet channel fish trap? And if it doesn't have impacts, is that off the table now or on the table? Or I just think we need to get that either on the table or off the table. And as far as I can see, it's off the table, but if there's something I'm missing there, let me know. Thank you.
Go ahead, Charlene.
Yeah, thanks, Cindy. Well, I would say for this one, I mean, I think we listed in a contingency plan place along with the 6-inch gill net because it does fall within that contingency planning category. If we do end up with a situation where we have, you know, an upgrade in the steelhead run size and we happen to have more steelhead impacts, I think it would be an option worth considering. And I think kind of like what we've said for 6-inch, you know, gill net options, some of these things are dependent that, you know, 6-inch gill net is a different decision having to do with concurrency. But for the alternative gears, I mean, if the Coho run comes in as forecast and we end up having some steelhead impacts, you know, those are the two things we would think about. And I think it provides managers some flexibility. So I don't think it's off the table at this point. It's just, I think, too early to make a decision on that.
Well, my point is that you don't have, as far as I know, nobody's jumping up saying, I want to go. There's no seiners wanting to go seining, or I haven't heard of any. There's no I mean, how would a guy start putting his gear together for something like that on such an unknown? But I just don't see it as an option. But I guess others do. But I mean, like even Blair, if you got a run size update, you say, "Oh, we got Coho allocation." I mean, to put that fish trap together is quite the ordeal. But anyway, that's just my 2 cents.
Yeah, well, and I know we are at time, but I just will say I don't think it's a Coho allocation issue as we've heard, but it is a B-run steelhead limitation. And so yeah, I think I hear you, Jim, that the more advanced notice we can give on any type of gear is probably better in terms of being able to actually use it. And I think we're in a situation this year where we will do the best that we can on those fronts.
Just a clarifying point, if I might, Cindy, Greg.
Go ahead, Greg.
So we have a list of contingency plans. We normally don't do that, but under the circumstances we're under, I understand why we have a contingency plan relative to surplus impacts. But I would hope that's not a priorities plan in terms of, it's usually unspoken that if impacts arise earlier in the season, for example, there's Chinook opportunity. Just as a quick example, in 13, we probably forecasted a catch of our preseason plan for a catch of 10 or 15,000 Chinook in the fall. We ended up with 45,000 fish, and we did that because the run boomed, and the Chinook run boomed, and we happened to have impacts to prosecute it. So I wouldn't want to see any prioritization relative to this contingency plan based, and I understand why it's in place, but anyway, food for thought that there's other contingencies that aren't listed that could become more valuable to the commercial fishery. That's why we or in-season manage. Thanks.
Okay, well, I want to honor people's time commitment here. I just want to check in with John and Charlene. Did we miss something that we need to? Did we miss anything, John?
No, I think we managed to get through it. At least the stuff that was in the points in the handout. I think we've got a few ideas to look at here moving forward. Some we can address and some we can't address at this time, but yeah, that's all I got.
Hey, John, John and Cindy, I guess, I wonder if it would be helpful, and we're already 4 minutes over, but to recap what those few possibilities are, that sounds like folks suggested, maybe some modifications to that number 5 alternative. Did you happen to write those down in a succinct fashion?
Well, I guess what I heard is either stick with option 5 as it is, or see if we can move the period in the week of September 12th, move from that into August, into the August timeframe, and then consider 6-inch in season if we have additional impacts. That was all I heard in terms of where we left off. But I could have missed something.
Yeah, that was generally the main ones I heard, just, qualifying that last one, that impacts and approval to use it on the Oregon side. So
right. Yeah. 6-inch. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, well, if nobody has anything else, then I guess we should adjourn, and we'll be working through a couple of this option that we have, and don't know what's going to happen with PFMC. So Greg, you're still the salmon advisory rep at the council, right?
Correct.
Okay. So yeah, I don't know what Ryan's plans are for communicating, but if we have to make changes.
Ryan joined. He may be able to share.
Oh, great. Now I have to speak.
Sorry, Ryan.
That's okay. I think if there's anything significant, it's very easy for us to send an email out, at least to the advisory group. But beyond that, it's a little more challenging. But yeah, I think that's our easiest path.
Okay. Well, in this commercial group, I'm guessing there's a bunch of advisors. Well, I know there's a bunch of them on this call, and most folks know how to get in touch with one of them if not. So, all right. Well, I guess we're going to adjourn then. Thank you all for your time and input, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.